You ready to start?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes, Maharaj. क्या हुआ? अब फोन पण છે ને.
Who has a bookmark? Take it, chapter 15, spontaneous devotional service.
Thank you very much.
Off the video, Salika. I have chapter 15 called Spontaneous Devotional Service. So, who would like to read first? Everybody have it, or do we need it on the screen?
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, do we have it on the screen for those who need it?
Yes, Maharaj.
So, Salika, who should go ahead?
Okay. I'll start then.
All right.
Chapter 15, Spontaneous Devotional Service. Examples of spontaneous devotional service can easily be seen in Krishna's direct association in Vrindavan. The spontaneous dealings of the residents of Vrindavan in relationship with Krishna are called Raganuga. These beings don't have to learn anything about devotional service. They are already perfect in all regulative principles and have achieved the spontaneous loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For example, the kite boys who are playing with Krishna do not have to learn by austerities or penances or yogic practice how to play with him. They have passed all tests of regulative principles in their previous lives. And as a result, they are now elevated to the position of direct association with Krishna as his dear friends. Their spontaneous attitude is called Raganuga Bhakti. Srila Rupa Goswami has defined Raganuga Bhakti as spontaneous attraction for something while completely absorbed in thought of it, with an intense desire of love. Devotional service executed with such feelings of spontaneous love is called Raganuga Bhakti. Devotional service under the heading of Raganuga can be further divided into two categories. One category is called sensual attraction, and the other is called relationship. In this connection, there is a statement by Narad Muni to Yudhishthira Maharaj in the 7th canto, 1st chapter, verse 30 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein there Narada Muni says, "My dear king, there are many devotees who first become attracted to the personality of God for purpose of sense gratification from being envious of him, out of fear of him, or from desiring to associate affectionately with him. Ultimately, these attractions become freed from all material contaminations, and gradually the worshipper develops love and achieves the ultimate goal of life, desired by the pure devotees. The gopis may be considered to be examples of spontaneous love and sensual attractions. The gopis are young girls and Krishna is a young boy. Superficially, it seems that the gopis are attracted to Krishna on grounds of sex. Similarly, King Kamsa was attracted to Krishna because of fear. Kamsa was always fearful of Krishna because it had been foretold that his sister's son, Krishna, would kill him. Shishupal was also always envious of Krishna. And the descendants of King Yadu, due to their family relationship with Krishna, were always thinking of him as one of their members. All of these different kinds of devotees have a spontaneous attraction for Krishna in different categories, and they achieve the same desired goal of life. The attractions of the gopis for Krishna and the affection of the members of the Yadu dynasty are both accepted as spontaneous or raganuga. The attraction of Kamsa to Krishna in fear and the attraction of Shishupal in envy are not accepted as devotion and service because, however, because their attitudes are not favorable. Devotional service should be executed only in a favorable frame of mind. Therefore, according to Srila Rupa Goswami, such attractions are not considered to be in devotional service. Again, he analyzes the affection of the Yadu. If it is on the platform of friendship, then it is spontaneous love. But if it is on the platform of regulative principles, then it is not. And only when affection comes to the platform of spontaneous love is it counted in the category of devotion and service. There may be some difficulty in understanding that both the gopis and Kamsa achieve the same goal. So this point should be clearly understood because the attitudes of Kamsa and Shishupal were different from that of the gopis. Although in all these cases, the focus is on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all of the devotees are elevated to the spiritual world. There is still a distinction between these two classes of souls. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the absolute truth is one and that he is manifested as impersonal Brahman, Paramahatma, Super Soul, and Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here it's a spiritual distinction. Although Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are the same and one, absolute truth. Devotees like Kamsa or Shishupal could attain only to the Brahma effulgence. They could not have realization of Paramatma or Bhagavan. That is the distinction. An analogy can be given with the sun globe and the sunshine. To remain in the sunshine does not mean one has gone to the sun globe. The temperature of the sun globe is different from the temperature of the sunshine. One who has gone through the sunshine is in jet planes or in spaceship has not necessarily gone to the sun globe. Although the sunshine and the sun globe are actually one and the same, still there's a distinction, for one is the energy and one is the energetic source. The absolute truth and his bodily effulgence are in the same way, simultaneously one and different. Kamsa and Shishupal attained to the absolute truth, but they were not allowed to enter into the Goloka Vrindavan abode. Impersonalists and the enemies of the Lord are, because of attraction to God, allowed to enter into the kingdom, but they are not allowed to enter into the Vaikuntha planets or the Goloka Vrindavan planet of the Supreme Lord. To enter the kingdom and to enter the king's palace are not the same thing. Srila Rupa Goswami is trying here to describe the different achievements of the impersonalist and the personalist. Generally, those who are impersonalists are inimical to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, get entrance onto the impersonal Brahman when and if they reach spiritual perfection. The impersonalist philosopher are in one sense like the enemies of the Lord. because the out and out enemy Hare Krishna.
Give some realization.
Yes, Maharaj. Sorry. Maharaj, you said what?
Give some realization.
Okay, Maharaj. Specifically in this section of the Nectar of Devotions, Srila Prabhupada is referencing Srila Rupa Goswami as the authority on the part of spontaneous love of Godhead. Prabhupada is distinguishing between Bhakti and spontaneous Bhakti, which is Raganuga Bhakti. And he is emphasizing further that Raganuga Bhakti, which is spontaneous, and he gave several examples like Shishupal, Kamsa, the Gopis of Vrindavan, the Gopals, the family members of Krishna like the Pandavas, the Yadus. They are spontaneously developing love for Krishna. But their love for Krishna is distinguished because they are favorable to Krishna. But Kamsa, Shishupal, who are envious and inimical to Krishna, even though they are spontaneously thinking about Krishna, their thinking of Krishna is not considered to be bhakti or devotion, even though it is spontaneously done, because it cannot give them the access into the vicinity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In his kingdom, Prabhupada give an example of the kingdom and the king's palace. Devotees like Kamsa and Shishupal can enter into the kingdom of God in the Brahma Jyoti. In the spiritual planet, they can enter into there because of their constantly thinking about Krishna. But they cannot enter into the Krishna's palace, which is Goloka Vrindavan. So in other words, here for us, sadhakas, the most important thing here is that if somehow or the other we are able to constantly and always thinking about Krishna, this section is giving us guarantee that we enter into the kingdom of God. But it is better off if we can think of Krishna favorably so that we can enter into the Krishna's palace. That's my understanding.
Good,
Hare
good,
Krishna.
good. So we shouldn't think, demons get killed by Krishna, they get the same result. They get the same result as the yogis who did so much tapasya to merge with Brahman. Very few demons get Vaikuntha. But sometimes the devotee will think, well, maybe I better be a demon. But to get killed by Krishna, you have to be a really big demon. A real Maha demon.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that also. Sometimes we see some tiny rascals who take enmity towards Krishna and Krishna's devotee. In other words, this kind of particular persons cannot be compared to that of Sisupal or Kamsa. Because Kamsa and Sisupal, they attain that position where they can directly be indicated to the Lord after so many lives of engagement in austerity.
They're actually special devotees. And one time I was looking up the history of these big demons, and they were from, a long time ago, they were demigods or something really special, but then they got cursed. And then they became demons. And then when they cried about, please give us some relief, then the sage, whoever cursed him, said, all right, after so many years, you'll be killed by Krishna. And then you can get out from this curse. So they were big, demigods, something really special. And then something happened like that. So they're not ordinary demons. They were killed by Krishna. Just read about many like that. I was just reading one in the Ramayana, that one big Rakshasa that Rama, and one of the first ones they met, they started looking for Sita. His name was Kabanda. And he was huge, he had no head and no legs, but he had a big mouth right in his belly, and he was gigantic, and his arms were 12 kilometers long or something. And then he told the story that he was something, high up, and then somehow he got in a fight with Indra. He challenged Indra. Then Indra knocked him out with his thunderbolt and removed his head and his legs. And then he said, how am I going to live without a head? His head was pushed inside his body. Indra said, okay, you can have your face on your belly, a big mouth. Then he just eat all the time. So then he cried, how can I get out of this hellish condition? Indra said, when you try to eat Ram and Lakshman in the forest. So that was like many years later, they buried him, they killed him, and then they cut off his arms. They couldn't do anything. Then he helped him. He gave him how to find Sugriva. But so, it's not like ordinary people that actually get to be killed by Krishna. We want to serve Krishna, nice one. Okay, who can read next?
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Maharaj. Sorry for yesterday.
No problem.
Yeah. The impersonalist philosophers are in one sense like the enemies of the Lord, because the out and out enemies of the Lord and the impersonalists are both allowed to enter only into the impersonal effulgence of the Brahma Jyoti. So it is to be understood that they are in similar classification. And actually the impersonalists are enemies of God because they cannot tolerate the unparalleled opulence of the Lord. They try always to place themselves on the same level with the Lord. That is due to their envious attitude. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has proclaimed the impersonalists to be offender of the Lord. The Lord is so kind, however, that even though they are his enemies, they are still allowed to enter into the spiritual kingdom and remain in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, the undifferentiated light of the Absolute. Sometimes an impersonalist may gradually elevate himself to the personal conception with the Lord. Bhagavad Gita confirmed this. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrender unto me. By such surrender, as impersonalists can be elevated to the Vaikuntha Loka, spiritual planet, where as a surrendered soul, he attained bodily feature like those of the Lord. In the Brahmada Puran, it is stated, those who have achieved liberation from material contamination and those who are demons and are liked by the Supreme Personality of Godhead become absorbed in the Brahman concept of life and reside in the spiritual sky of the Brahma Jyoti. That spiritual sky is far beyond the material sky, and it is confirmed also in Bhagavad Gita that beyond this material sky there is another eternal sky. The enemies and the impersonalists may be allowed to enter into this Brahman effulgence, but the devotees of Krishna are promoted all the way to the spiritual planet because the pure devotees have developed their spontaneous love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are allowed to enter into the spiritual planet to enjoy spiritual bliss in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the 10th canto, 87th chapter, verse 23 of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Vedas personified address the Lord in this way. My dear Lord, yogis meditate upon your localized feature, and thus they achieve the spiritual perfection of being merged in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. Person who treat you as an enemy achieves the same perfection with meditation. The gopis who are embarrassed by your serpentine hands and who have such lusty attitude also achieve the same perfection. And as far as we are concerned, being different demigods in charge of the different parts of Vedic knowledge, we are always following in the footsteps of the gopis. Thus, we hope to attain the same perfection. By the same perfection, we must always remember the example of the sun and the sunshine. Those who are impersonalists can merge into the sunshine like Brahma Jyoti, whereas those who are in love with Supreme Person enter into the supreme abode of the Lord Golak Vrindavan. The lusty attitude of gopis does not refer to any sort of sex indulgence. Srila Rupa Goswami explained that this lusty desire refers to the devotee's particular attitude of association with Krishna. Every devotee in this perfection stage has a spontaneous attraction to the Lord. This attraction is sometimes called the lusty desire of the devotee. The lust is the devotee's excessive desire to serve the Lord in a particular capacity. Such a desire may seem to be the desire for enjoying the Lord, but actually the endeavor is to serve the Lord in that capacity. For example, a devotee may be desiring to associate with the personality of Godhead as his coward friend. He will want to serve the Lord by assisting him in controlling the cows in the pasturing ground. This may appear to be a desire to enjoy the company of the Lord, but actually it is spontaneous love, serving him by assisting in managing the transcendental cows. Sensual attraction. This extreme desire to serve the Lord is manifest in the transcendental land of Vraja, and it is specifically manifested among the gopis. The gopis' love for Krishna is so elevated that for our understanding, it is sometimes explained as being lusty desire. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Krishnadas, has explained the distinction between lusty desire and the service attitude in this statement. Lusty desire refers to the desire to gratify one's personal senses. The transcendental desire refers to the desire for serving the senses of the Lord. In the material world, there is no such thing as a lover wanted to please the senses of his beloved. Actually, in the material world, everyone wants to maintain mainly to gratify his own personal senses. The gopis, however, wanted nothing at all but to gratify the senses of the Lord. And there is no instance of this in the material world. Therefore, gopis' ecstatic love for Krishna is sometimes described by scholars as follows, as being like the lusty desire of the material world. But actually, this should not be taken as a literal fact. It is simply a way of trying to understand the transcendental situation. Great devotees up to the standard of Uddhava are very dear friend of the Lord, and they desire to follow in the footsteps of the gopis. So the gopis' love for Krishna is certainly not material lusty desire. Otherwise, how could Uddhava aspire to follow in their footsteps? Another instance of Lord Chaitanya himself. After accepting the sannyas order of life, he was very strict about avoiding association with women. But still he taught that there is no better method of worshipping Krishna than that conceived by the gopis. Thus, the gopis' method is worshipping the Lord as if impelled by lusty desire was praised very highly even by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This very fact means that although the attraction of the gopis for Krishna appears to be lusty, it is not in the least bit material. Unless one is fully situated in the transcendental position, the relationship of the gopis with Krishna is very difficult to the relationship of very difficult to understand. But because it appears to be just like ordinary dealing of young boys and girls, it is sometimes misinterpreted to be like the ordinary sex of this material world. Unfortunately, person who cannot understand the transcendental nature of the love affairs of gopis and Krishna take it for granted that Krishna's love affairs with the gopis are mundane and transcendent transactions. And therefore, they sometimes indulge in painting licentious picture of some modernistic style. On the other hand, the lusty desire of Kubja is described by learned scholar as being almost lusty desire. Kubja was a hunchback woman who also wanted Krishna with a great ecstatic love. But her desire for Krishna was almost mundane, and so her love cannot be compared to the love of the gopis. Her loving affection for Krishna is called karma praya, or almost like the gopis' love for Krishna. Hare Krishna. The chapter has finished. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
What comments do you have about what you just read?
Here it is mentioned that in scriptures it's mentioned that the gopis attraction is lusty desire, but it is not a lusty because that is a transcendental love for Krishna. It's not like ordinary boys and girls love, and they are actually connected for the material, their own bodily desire. And impersonalists, they are also attracted to the Lord, but not for the like they don't have the love like gopis. But then also Krishna accept their love and give them gradually they can increase their love and go to the Golok Vrindavan.
Sounds
Hare Krishna.
good. Okay, spontaneous, something, misunderstood a lot. Prabhupada, it means you do something, you don't have to do it, but you do it extra. So, like, we have our duty to do, but maybe somebody does something more. Prabhupada said, his guru told him to preach in the English-speaking world, but then he came to India also. He said that was spontaneous. I got another idea to go beyond. Of course, it turns out that preaching in India is helping the preaching in other countries because Krishna is so kind. But it's not some really mystical thing where, you're exhibiting all 8 symptoms of ecstasy and all that. It's not like that. Okay, so that's another chapter. Quite a wonderful one. Next one is a continuation to explain it more. Spontaneous devotion further described. So, Chandra Prabhu, can you read today?
Yes, I can read. Chapter 16, relationship. In the attitude of the deserts of Vrindavan, such as Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, it is to be found the ideal transcendental concept of being the father and mother of Krishna, the original personality of Godhead. Factually, no one can become the father or mother of Krishna, but a devotee's possession of such transcendental feelings is called love of Krishna in parental relationship. The Vishnus, Krishna's relatives, Aduraka, also felt like that. So spontaneous love of Krishna in the parental relationships is found both among those denizens of Aduraka who belong to the dynasty of Krishna and among the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Spontaneous love of Krishna, as exhibited by the Vishnus and the Nazis of Vrindavan, is internally existing in them in the stage of devotional service.
Comment? So it's interesting. It's saying it, this is spontaneous, this love, and you can't really discuss it. For us, we get this much information, but the point is, it's natural in everyone. And if we follow the practices of Vaidhi Bhakti, then this spontaneous love develops more and more automatically. But you can't just study about it and find some secret red pill or something you take that all of a sudden you have Raganuga Bhakti. Like some so-called gurus and people talk like that. I'll give you right away, you'll get, Raganuga, you'll get your Siddha Pranali, you'll know who you are in the spiritual That's not true. Gurus sometimes do that with a disciple who is very, very advanced with them. All right. Move on.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Eligibility for spontaneous devotional service. Person desiring to follow in the footsteps of such eternal devotees of the Lord as the Vishnus and Vrindavan denizens are called Raganuga devotees, which means that they are trying to attain to the perfection of those devotees. The Raganuga devotees do not follow the regulative principle of devotional service very strictly, but by spontaneous nature, they become attracted to some of the eternal devotees, such as Nanda or Yashoda, and they try to follow in their footsteps spontaneously. There is a gradual development of the ambition to become like a particular devotee, and this activity is called Raganuga. We must always remember, however, that such uh, eagerness to follow in the footsteps of the denizens of Raja Vrindavan is not possible unless one is freed from material contamination. In following the regulative principle of devotional service, there is a stage called Anartha Nivritti, which means the disappearance of all material contamination. Sometimes someone is found imitating such devotional love, but factually he is not freed from anarthas or unwanted habits. It has been seen that a so-called devotee proclaimed himself as follower of Nanda, Yashoda, or the gopis, while at the same time his abominable attraction for mundane sex life is visible. Such a manifestation of divine love is mere, sorry, uh, uh, sometimes someone found it imitating such devotees' love, but factually he is not freed from anarthas or unwanted habits. It has been seen that so-called devotees proclaim himself as follower of Nanda, Yashoda, and Gopis, while some at the same time abominable attraction for mundane sex life is visible. Such a manifestation of divine love is mere limitation of and has no value. When one is actually spontaneously attracted to the loving principle of the gopis, there will be found no trace of any mundane contamination in his character. Therefore, in the beginning, everyone should strictly follow the regulative principle of devotional service according to the injunction of the scriptures and the spiritual master. Only after the stage of liberation from the material contamination can one actually aspire to follow in the footsteps of the devotees in Vrindavan. It is said by Srila Rupa Goswami, when one is actually liberated from material contamination, he can always remember an eternal devotee in Vrindavan in order to love Krishna in the same capacity. And developing such an attitude, one will always live in Vrindavan and even
Haribol.
within his mind. The purport is that if It is possible one should go and physically be present at
Hare Krishna, mother. Hare
Rajbhumi,
Krishna.
Vrindavan,
Hare
and
Krishna.
be engaged always in the
Hare
service
Krishna,
of
mother.
the Lord.
Mother.
Following the devotees
Haribol,
in Rajdham,
Hare
the
go ahead.
preacher in him
Had a little
of
trouble with
Braj.
my.
If it is not
Yeah,
possible, however, to be physically present at
Go
Vrindavan,
ahead.
one can meditate anywhere upon living in that situation. Whereas he may be one must always think about life in Rajdham and about following in the footsteps of a particular devotee in the service of the Lord. A devotee is who is actually advanced in Krishna consciousness, who is constantly engaged in devotional service, should not manifest himself even though he has attained perfection. The idea is that he should always continue to act as a neophyte devotee as long as his material body is there. Activities in devotional service under regulative principle must be followed even by the pure devotees. But when he realizes his actual position in relationship with the Lord, he can, along with the discharging of regulative service, think within himself of Lord under the guidance of particular associate of the Lord and develop his transcendental sentiments in following that associate. In this connection, we should be careful about so-called Siddha Pranali. The Siddha Pranali process is followed by a class of men who are not very authorized and who have manufactured their own way of devotional service. They imagine that they have become associate of the Lord simply by thinking of themselves like that. This external behavior is not at all according to the regulative principle. The so-called Siddha Pranali process is followed by the Prakarta Sahajas, Pashudosyak, so-called Vaishnavas. In the opinion of Rupa Goswami, such activities are simply disturbances to the standard way of devotional service. Sri Rupa Goswami says that learned acharyas recommended that when follow the regulative principles even after the development of spontaneous love for Krishna. According to the regulative principles, there are 9 departmental activities as described above. The one should especially engage himself in the type of devotional service for which he has a natural aptitude. For example, one person may have particular interest in hearing, another may have particular interest in chanting, another may have particular interest in serving in temple. So these or any of the other 6 different types of devotional service, remembering, serving, praying, engaging in some particular service, being in a friendly relation or offering everything in one's possession should be executed in full earnestness. In this way, everyone should act according to his particular taste. Hare Krishna.
Okay, very good. So that's very
Hare
clear.
Krishna.
You know what the Siddhi Panali
Uh,
is?
Here it is mentioned that we should follow the footsteps of the who stays in the Rajadam. Like we should develop our love to Krishna according to them. How Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai and Gopis how love to Krishna. But it should be we can do it like we can stay there and we can do it, but if it is not possible to go there, but we can develop our love where we can just think that we are in Vrindavan and do our devotional service, and it is stated here that and even if the advanced devotees or they are advanced in Krishna consciousness, they should think that we are the neophyte devotees, and we always learn how to develop our consciousness and love to Krishna. And yeah, we always follow the footsteps of Vaishnavas, the pure Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So the Siddha Pranali, what it is
And there is mentioned that we can develop our love according the 9 bhaktis. Like anyhow we can develop our love, like remembering, serving, praying, like that.
what the Siddha Pranali is that these gurus,
We can't hear Maharaj. The voice is too low.
wow. What the Siddha Pranali is, you can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Maharaj. You go ahead, Maharaj.
Yeah, it's they'll supposedly tell you, what you are in the spiritual world. And then you can practice, and Prabhupada, previously that was done even, by Gaudiya, but Bhakti said that Hanta never did it. He condemned it because you have to be very, very advanced to come to that understanding. But there's so many gurus in Radhakund or something will just give to anybody for a few dollars, And so this is a very pollution on the whole system. I heard like in the early days in Vrindavan, some devotees got that, and one, they told him he was a peacock in Vrindavan and he would go around, practicing to be a peacock, and Prabhupada was not happy at all.
Hare Krishna, I can't hear. The voice is too low.
But now,
You can take your
now,
we can hear you, Maharaj.
okay.
But maybe you
So-
should check your speaker.
Maybe I can't hear.
So now the real thing is, Lord Chaitanya said, Jivara Swarapoi, Nityara Krishna Das. Everyone is an eternal servant of Krishna. So in the spiritual world, there's all kinds of rasas with Krishna. Even in the Vaikuntha, where everybody basically looks like Vishnu, they take different forms for the pleasure of the Lord. They become animals, they become birds, they become demigods, just for the pleasure of the Lord. But the real thing is service, not what body you have, what kind of form you have. Because in any form, they're a servant of Krishna. So this, like Prabhupada said, so-called. So we have to be very careful, because if you go to Vrindavan and you go to Radhakund or something and you're not escorted, you might meet someone that offers you that. They'll say, your guru And Bhakti Siddhanta, they didn't give everything. I can give you the Siddhapanali right away. And some people think, oh yeah, great, let me have it. Big mistake. All right. So another chapter down. Quite good. We go to chapter 16, or you want to go over that a little more? But there's a lot of repetition, because we're dull-headed and we have to get examples. We can't exactly explain the spiritual world because we can't see it, but we can get examples to get some idea. Okay, so now this is the highest rasa, conjugal love. That's the next one.
The small marigold plant there. Small, the marigold. The plant, It's very small, like.
Hare Krishna.
So you want to go to chapter 16, huh? Okay. So Anandini Nam, please.
And I think that
I'm at the temple right now. There is a noise and bell ringing, so I think it will disturb. But if you can pardon me, I can continue.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please, I can read.
Okay.
Please, chapter 16.
conjugal love. We are reading conjugal love in the school.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
That's a section in chapter 16, huh?
Conjugal love. Devotional service following in the footsteps of the gopis of Vrindavan or the queens at Dwarka is called devotional service in conjugal love. This devotional service in conjugal love can be divided into two categories. One is indirect conjugal love, the other direct. In both of these categories, one has to follow the particular gopi who is engaged in such service in Goloka Vrindavan. To be directly attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in conjugal love is technically called Keli. This Keli performance means to directly join with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are other devotees who do not wish direct contact with the Supreme Person, but who relish the conjugal love affairs of the Lord with the gopis. Such devotees enjoy simply by hearing of the activities of the Lord with the gopis. This development of conjugal love can be possible only with those who are already engaged in following the regulative principles of devotional service, specifically in the worship of Radha and Krishna in the temple. Such devotees gradually develop a spontaneous love for the deity, and by hearing of the Lord's exchange of loving affairs with the gopis, they gradually become attracted to these pastimes. After this spontaneous attraction becomes highly developed, the devotee is placed in either of the above mentioned categories. This development of conjugal love for Krishna is not manifested in women only. The material body has nothing to do with spiritual loving affairs. A woman may develop an attitude for becoming a friend of Krishna, and simply a man may develop the future of becoming a gopi in Vrindavan. How a devotee in the form of a man can desire to become a gopi is stated in the Padma Purana as follows. In days gone by, there were many sages in Dandakaranya. Dandakaranya is the name of the forest where Lord Ramachandra lived after being banished by his father for 14 years. At that time, there were many advanced sages who were captivated by the beauty of Lord Ramachandra and who desired to become women in order to embrace the Lord. Later on, these sages appeared in Goloka, Vrindavan, where Krishna advented himself there, and they were born as gopis or girlfriends of Krishna. In this way, they attained the perfection of spiritual life. The story of the sages of Dandakaranya can be explained as follows. When Lord Ramachandra was residing in Dandakaranya, the sages who were engaged in devotional service there became attracted by his beauty and immediately thought of the gopis at Vrindavan who engaged conjugal loving affairs with Krishna. In this instance, it is clear that the sages of Dandakaranya desired conjugal love in the manner of the gopis, although they were well aware of the Supreme Lord as both Krishna and Lord Ramachandra. They knew that although Ramachandra was an ideal king and could not accept more than one wife, Lord Krishna, being the full-fledged personality of Godhead, could fulfill the desires of all of them in Vrindavan. These sages also concluded that the form of Lord Krishna is more attractive than that of Lord Ramachandra, and so they prayed to become gopis in their future lives to be associated with Krishna. Lord Ramachandra remained silent, and his silence shows that he accepted the prayers of the sages. Thus, they were blessed by Lord Ramachandra to have association with Lord Krishna in their future lives. As a result of this benediction, they all took birth as women in the wombs of gopis at Gokula, and as they had desired in their previous lives, they enjoyed the company of Lord Krishna, who was present at the time of Gokula Vrindavan. The perfection of their human form of life was thus achieved by their generating a transcendental sentiment to share conjugal love with the Lord Krishna. Conjugal love is divided into two classifications, namely conjugal love as husband and wife, and conjugal love as lover and beloved. One who develops conjugal love for Krishna as a wife is promoted to Dwaraka, where the devotee becomes the queen of the Lord. One who develops conjugal love for Krishna as a lover is promoted to Goluka Vrindavan to associate with the gopis and enjoy loving affairs with Krishna there. We should note carefully, however, that this conjugal love for Krishna, either as gopi or as queen, is not limited only to women. Even men can develop such sentiments, as was evident by the sages of Dandakaranya. If someone simply desires conjugal love but does not follow in the footsteps of the gopis, he is promoted to association with the Lord at Dwaraka. In the Mahakuma Purana, it is stated, great sages who were the sons of fire gods rigidly followed the regulative principles in their desire to have conjugal love for Krishna. As such, in their next lives, they were able to associate with the Lord, the origin of all creation, who is known as Vasudeva or Krishna, and all of them got him as their husband. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so any comments? This is very, very elevated, but very important because, like I said, the Sahajiyas, they're presenting all kinds of, they're really crazy. There's many different ones. If you want to hear a few of them, you'd like to hear? Would you like to
Maharaj.
hear about some of the Sahajiyas?
Yes, Maharaj.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, Maharaj.
Everybody?
Please, we
Okay.
can hear you.
So there's one called the Saki Bakis. They're men who dress up like gopis. Then there's Chudidharis. They dress up like Krishna. They wear a peacock feather. And then they dance with the ones who are dressed up like gopis and things like that. And they say that they know I'm a gopi, I'm a cowherd boy, I'm this, I'm Krishna. Very, very degraded things. They're usually engaged in a lot of illicit activities, but they can sound good, look good. They can make really good kirtan sometimes. So we have to be very careful. So the next one is a little more easy to relate to, but the important thing is that the relationship with Krishna doesn't depend on what kind of body we have now, your real relationship with Krishna, your mood. But the real thing is service. Whether you have a body of a cow or the body of a gopi or the body of a elephant in Goloka or whatever they have, it's all just, everybody wants to serve Krishna. That's the real nature. That's our real perfection. It's just pure service. And then everybody will get a body, different types of bodies for the pleasure of the Lord. And everybody's completely happy. Nobody's envious. Nobody's thinking, well, I want to have a body like this one or that one. Everybody's happy. Okay, who can read next? Did
Please,
Ramachandra?
continue.
Okay, Raganuga Bhakti. All right. Good name. Now you're learning about what that really is, huh?
Yes, please, Maharaj. Parenthood or friendship. Devotees who are attracted to Krishna as parents or as friends should follow in the footsteps of Nanda Maharaj or Subala, respectively. Nanda Maharaj is the foster father of Krishna, and out of all of the friends of Krishna, Subala is the most intimate in Raja Bhumi. In the development of becoming either the father or friend of the Lord, there are two varieties. One method is that one may try to become the father of the Lord directly, and the other is that one may follow Nanda Maharaj and cherish the ideal of being Krishna's father. Out of these two, the attempt to directly become the father of Krishna is not recommended. Such a development can become polluted with Mayavada or impersonal philosophy. The Mayavadis or monists think that they themselves are Krishna, and if one thinks that he himself has become Nanda Maharaj, then his parental love will become contaminated with the Mayavada philosophy. The Mayavada philosophical way of thinking is offensive, and no offender can enter into the kingdom of God to associate with Krishna. In the Skanda Purana, there is a story of an old man residing in Hastinapura, capital of the kingdom of the Pandu, who desired Krishna as his beloved son. This old man was instructed by Narada to follow in the footsteps of Nanda Maharaj, and thus he achieved success. There is a statement in the Narayan Vibhastava. There is a statement in the Narayan Vibhastava prayers that persons who are always engaged in thinking of the Lord as their husband, friend, father, or well-wisher are always worshipable by everyone. This spontaneous love for Krishna can be developed only by the special mercy of Krishna or his pure devotee. This process of devotional service is sometimes called Pushti Marga. Pushti means nourishing, and Marga means path. Such development of sentiments nourishes devotional service to the highest standard. Thus, it is called the path of nourishment or Pushti Marga. The Vallabha Sampradaya, which belongs to the Vishnu Swami set of Vaishnava religion, worships Krishna in this Pushti Marga. Generally, devotees in Gujarat worship Bala Krishna under this heading of Pushti Marga. Hare Krishna.
Okay, that's very good. So to think that I become Nanda Maharaj, or I become Yasoda, or I become any, and this is just as bad as thinking I become Krishna. So we have to understand, we're just trying to become devotees. And then Krishna will arrange, whatever else. Okay. You want to read more, or is there anyone else who's able to read today? Ramachandra, can you read?
Okay. Hare Krishna. And Addendum cannot read, so Ramachandra is not able to read.
Not
So,
able. How about Bhakti Prince? He's never able to, right?
yeah.
Where is he that he can't?
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
So I read Maharaj.
All right.
Ecstatic love. By the process of executing regulated devotional service, one is actually elevated to the transcendental state beyond the material modes of nature. At that time, one's heart becomes illuminated like the sun. The sun is far above the planetary system, and there is no possibility of it being covered by any kind of cloud. Similarly, when a devotee is purified like the sun, from his pure heart, there is a diffusion of ecstatic love, which is more glorious than the sunshine. Only at that time is the attachment to Krishna perfect. Spontaneously, the devotee becomes eager to serve the Lord in his ecstatic love. At this stage, the devotee is on the platform of Uttama Adhikari, perfect devotion. Such a devotee has no agitation from material affections and is interested only in the service of Radha and Krishna. To clarify, in the previous chapters, the symptoms of devotional service were explained along with instructions as how to with instructions as to how we may execute devotional service with our present senses and gradually rise to the platform of ecstasy in love, in spontaneous love. And the two kinds of devotional service, namely devotional service through regulative principles and through spontaneous love, were discussed. Within the stage of regulative principles of devotional service, there are two divisions, namely executive and effective. The effective portion of devotional service is called bhava or ecstasy. In this connection, there is a statement in the Tantras that ecstasy is the first symptom of pure love for the personality of God. And in that stage, one is sometimes found shedding tears or shivering. Not always are these symptoms manifest, but occasionally, when King Ambarish was put into difficulty by Durvasa Muni, he began to think of the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus there were some changes in his body, and tears were flowing from his eyes. The symptoms are activities of ecstasy. They are not visible in the shivering of the body and the shedding of tears. After the outward appearance of these ecstatic symptoms, they stay within the mind, and continuation of the ecstasy is called samadhi. This stage of appreciation becomes the cause of future exchanges of loving affairs with Krishna. Elevation to this stage of ecstasy can be possible in two ways. One way is by constant association with pure devotees. The other way is by the special mercy of Krishna or the mercy of a pure devotee of Krishna. Elevation to the ecstatic stage of life is generally attained through association with pure devotees, while elevation to that stage by the special mercy of Krishna or his devotee is very rare. The purport is that one should execute devotional service rigidly in the association of the devotees, so that there will be a certainty in raising oneself to that ecstatic position. In special cases, of course, there is special favor from Krishna. And although we should always expect that, we should not sit idly and simply wait for Krishna's special mercy. The regular duties must be performed. It is just as when someone is found. I take that again. It is just as when sometimes it is found that a person who never attended school or college may be recognized as a great scholar, or an honorary degree from great universities may be offered to him. But this does not mean that one should avoid school and expect to automatically receive an honorary degree from some university. Similarly, one should execute the regulative principles of devotional service, and at the same time hope for Krishna's favor or for his devotees' favor. An example of rising to the stage of ecstatic love by executing the regulative principles of devotional service is given in the life of Narada, which is described to Srila Vyasadeva in Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada tells there of his previous life and how he developed to the stage of ecstatic love. He was engaged in service of the great devotees and used to hear their talks and songs. Because he has an opportunity to hear these pastimes and songs of Krishna from the mouths of the pure devotees, he became very attracted within his heart. Because he had become so eager to hear these topics, he gradually developed within himself an ecstatic love for Krishna. This ecstatic love is parallel to the pure love of God of Krishna, because in the next verse, Narada confirms that by the gradual process of hearing from the great sages, he developed love of Godhead. In that connection, Narada continues to say in the first canto, 5th chapter, verse 28 of the Bhagavatam, first, I pass my days in the association of the great sages during the autumn season, every morning and evening. I had them while they were singing and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, and thus my heart gradually became purified. As soon as I heard them with great attention, the influence of the modes of material ignorance and passion disappeared, and I became firmly fixed in devotion and service to the Lord. These are practical these are practical examples of how one can develop to the stage of ecstatic love simply by the association of pure devotees. It is essential, therefore, that one constantly associate with pure devotees who are engaged morning, evening, in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. In this way, one will get the chance to purify his heart and develop this ecstatic love. For Krishna.
Comment?
Hare Krishna. Yeah, this session is talking about the process that leads one to the state of pure love of God. In other words, pure love of God is not accidental. It comes through either of the two parts delineated here in this summary about Srila Prabhupada. That one cannot just accidentally become a pure devotee. One become pure devotee only if he is able to go through either of these two processes. One is the process of association with those who are pure devotees, hearing and serving such a personality, the great pure devotees. And the other is by the special mercy of the Lord. And properly emphasize that is not very common. It comes only rarely. So therefore, one should not think that because the Lord sometimes gives a special mercy for one to become a pure devotee, then one should not engage in the regulative process of devotion and service. In other words, regulative engagement or regulative devotional service is the general path to love of God, and that regulative principle of devotional service is achieved by the association of pure devotees. And Prabhupada gave the example where we just read of the case of Narad Muni in his enlightenment to Srila Vyasadeva in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam chapter 5, wherein he explained his own previous life. That in his previous life was the son of a maid servant. He served the Mahabhagavat. He took their prasadam. He had them sing and chant the holy name, and they developed loving devotional stuff in that way. So summarily, this section is telling us that we should aspire to become a pure devotee by association of pure devotee, and not feel that because the Lord really gives devotional service, or even at sometimes gives devotional service, you just wait for him. That's my understanding.
Well, that's a lot. Anyone else get anything from that?
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Here Narad Muni says that that association with a pure devotees, we can get the pure love of God.
Yeah. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi. Lord Chaitanya said that. One of the first instructions to Sanatana Goswami. All scriptures declare in the Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. It's the perfection of all cities, all perfection. That's the way we get, just like anything. If you associate with drunkards, you're very likely to become a drunkard, right? If you associate with people that, whatever they're doing, you're going to do like them. So if we associate with devotees, then we're always hearing about Krishna. There's always kirtan, there's something going on. And if we associate nicely, that means hearing and chanting and serving. Then we'll also become very advanced automatically. And we want to give our association. If we are a devotee, we have a duty then to give our association to others so that they can become advanced. Because that's the only way that anybody can really, the world can be helped. The world is suffering greatly, and there's no material solution So far, nothing has worked. But Krishna consciousness can work and do it. But we have to spread it and get out and chant, distribute the books, and take it seriously, our own chanting and our own reading. And all right. Somebody want to read more? Who else can read?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
You want to read more? That's good. Happy.
Okay.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. This statement is also confirmed in the third canto, 25th chapter, verse 25 of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Kapila says, "My dear mother, when a person is actually in association with pure devotees, the sublime potency of my devotional service can be experienced. In other words, when a pure devotee speaks, his words act upon the hearts of the audience. What is the secret of hearing and chanting? A professional speaker cannot impress transcendental ecstasy within the hearts of the listeners. However, when a realized soul who is engaged in the service of the Lord is speaking, he has the potency to inject spiritual life within the audience. One should therefore seek the association of such pure, unalloyed devotees, and by such association and service, a neophyte devotee will certainly develop attachment, love, and devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Padma Purana, there is the story of a neophyte devotee who, in order to raise himself to the ecstatic platform, danced all night to invoke the Lord's grace upon her. Sometimes, however, it is found that without undergoing any devotional process,
Hey,
one all of a sudden develops devotion for Lord Krishna. This sudden development of the devotional attitude in a person must
the
be
screen is not keeping up. Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
Maharaj. Okay, I'll repeat the sentence, the line again. This sudden development of the devotional attitude in a person must be understood as a special mercy of Krishna or of his devotee. This apparently accidental development of ecstatic feelings through the causeless mercy of Krishna can be divided into three groups: simply by speaking, simply by glancing, and simply by good wishes. In the Naradiya Purana, where there is a statement about development of ecstatic love simply by speaking, Lord Krishna said to Narada, "O best of the Brahmanes, I wish that you may develop unalloyed devotional service to me, which is full of transcendental bliss and all auspiciousness." In the Skanda Purana, there is a statement about developing ecstatic love toward Krishna simply by glancing. It is stated there, when the inhabitants of Jangala province saw the personality of Godhead, Krishna, they were so stricken with feeling that they could not withdraw their glance from him. As far as heartfelt wishes are concerned, there is a statement in the Sukha Samhita where Narada tells Shri Vyasadeva, "You have a son, who is the greatest devotee of the personality of Godhead. And I can observe that without any following of the regulative principles of devotional service, he is already enriched with many of the symptoms achieved by the execution of devotional service after many years. As for ecstatic love of Krishna, there is a statement in the 7th canto, 4th chapter, verse 36 of Srimad Bhagavatam, in which Narada addresses King Yudhishthira, my dear king. It is very difficult to describe the character of Prahlad. He developed a natural attraction for Krishna, and whatever I can explain about his character will simply be an arrangement of words. His actual character is impossible to describe. This means that Narada himself admitted that the natural development of Prahlad's ecstatic love was by the grace of Lord Krishna. This natural attraction for Krishna on the part of Prahlad was developed simply by the mercy of Narada. When Prahlad Maharaj was within the womb of his mother, she was being sympathetically instructed by Narada about the science of devotional service. And at the same time, Narada was wishing that the child within the womb could also take advantage of the instructions, because Narada, an authorized devotee and great associate of the personality of Godhead, was desiring auspiciousness for Prahlad Maharaj. He developed all the characteristics of high-grade devotee. This is called natural attraction. It is caused by the special grace of the personality of Godhead, or by the special grace of a great devotee like Narada. There is a statement in the Skanda Purana wherein Parvata Muni tells Narada, my dear Narada, of all saintly persons, you are so great and glorious that simply by your good wishes, a low-born hunter also has become a great elevated devotee of Lord Krishna. This ecstatic love for Krishna can be divided into 5 divisions, which will be described by Srila Rupa Goswami later on. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Comment? Explanation? Explain it again in your own words, one way or another.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
So the verse we just read confirms 3 ways that one can attain the causeless mercy of Krishna in relation to the development of ecstatic love or feelings. So the Naradi Purana confirms about the speaking, and also the Skanda Purana also confirms about the glancing, and it also discuss how highly elevated devotee of the Lord or a sage can give the blessing of ecstatic love or ecstatic development. In the case of Prahlad Maharaj was cited where when the mother was pregnant, she got the opportunity to be instructed by Narada, and through that the unborn baby in the womb got that great mercy, and he was able to demonstrated it during his lifetime. So it is encouraged that if you also hear from advanced devotees of the Lord, the likelihood of developing ecstatic love becomes so easy for us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, that's very good. So this is I guess you could call it the real essence, you know. Very important for us to know, so we can understand, you know, when you're on the right path, you're going to get to the goal if you keep moving along that path. But if you think, well, actually, I'll jump off this cliff and then I'll get to the end of the road quicker, it might not work, you know. So, you know, someone may tell you that I can give you a shortcut, you can get Krishna Prema immediately, you can know, you can be with Krishna, you can know who you are. Don't believe them, because that's condemned. Cheating process. We have a few minutes if we want to start chapter 18. The
I think
character
we
of,
can do that.
huh?
I was thinking that we could do the last two chapters next weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
Next week. Okay, we'll leave
Yeah.
it. So you want to say anything about, in general, the whole process? We read a lot of chapters in this book, and it's a step-by-step thing, you know. It's a really amazing book. It's considered Rupa Goswami's greatest work. And Prabhupada, when he said what to read, you know, he said Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar Devotion, the Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are the most important books. And if we just read them, we don't need any other books. We can see that as well.
Yeah. So Maharaj, what time are you still in India by next weekend?
I'm still in India next week. Yeah, I'll be in India, pretty sure.
So can we keep the same time this week? or
Like
next-
this time better than the earlier one. This is all right with me.
Okay, so we'll keep it Saturday and Sunday next weekend. The same
Same,
time.
9:30 Ghana, 10:30 Nigeria.
Okay, Maharaj.
All right. So think deeply about these things, even if you just, you know, look through the chapter titles and then try to think, because, you know, we want to be able to write something about it. That's the main thing. We want to, not that we can just say how many gopis there are or something, but we want to be able to imbibe this in people, you know, in ourselves, then we can spread it. So thank you all very much. Kirtan, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
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 Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare
Hare Rama,
Rama
Rama
Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare Ram,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Ram.
Rama, Hare Hare.
Now we got a really nice report from Kamalaksha on the first day of the Holy Name Week. Big Harinam and Wari with lots of books and quite nice. You know, I haven't heard from anyone else, but I hope everybody's trying to focus on that. Whatever you can do. If you can't go out and chant, chant in the temple, but more chant. The idea is more chant. Get more understanding of the value of chant. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai,
Jai.
Rita ki jai,
Jai.
Swami ki jai, Gaur Premanandi ki
Hare
jai.
Hare 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 Bol.
Holiness Kakvicandra
Bhakti
Maharaj
ki
ki
jai. Gaur
Jai.
Wow. Sarika Prabhu ki.
Jai.
Hare
So devotees, next weekend is going to be the same time, Saturday, Sunday. So let us have it. It's going to be the conclusion. I requested Maharaj to leave it to next week because those two chapters are actually like the cover. The chapter 1 and 2 of Nectar of Devotion are like the front cover, and this 18 and 19 of Nectar of Devotion are like the cover. They give the essence of the offices of devotion service. And then if you are prepared for it, and keep the next one. Because all whatever we have been reading in the last, whatever we have been reading in the last two chapters, the practicality, how to live it in our own individual life in those two chapters. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, see you next weekend. Hare Bo.
Hare